Howdy Steelers, and welcome to this review of What a Cowboy. I got this just over a week ago now at Salute, a week ago when I'm recording this, and as you can see from the table in front of me, I've actually been playing this recently. I've actually finished just making a battle report which should already be out on the channel. It should have been out a week ago by the time I've recorded this, if my scheduling is correct. But I thought what I'd do is, I went through the rules in that game as I was actually playing it. However, I thought what I'll do is I'll do a proper review of it as well. So there's a few things in the rules that in that game that weren't covered in the rules and things. So I just kind of want to go through it a little bit and talk a little bit more about it and just give you my impressions of it really. Obviously, brand new game by the Two Fat Lardies, based on Hollywood Cowboys, written by John Savage. He's been playtesting it for years now, and I know that I've seen it on the show circuit and also on the Two Fat Lardies days as well. John's been showing it there quite a lot, and it's now borne fruit in the form of the actual physical book itself, which, as I say, was only just released recently. If you like Cowboys, if you like Hollywood, then this is, I think, the game for you. Definitely a great starter game for people who are just wanting to get into that kind of period and that kind of fun, and definitely a great fun game as well. There's a lot in here. It uses a dice mechanic, a little bit like Chain of Command, and also borrows very heavily from What a Tanker. If you haven't played that, that's a great game. I've got a couple of videos of games of that as well. That's really good fun game. Some slight different nuances to What a Tanker though. Obviously being a cowboy game, it's slightly different, has a different setting, and there's different bits and pieces. And I think probably a little bit more granularity than there is in What a Cowboy, if that's even a word. I would suggest, I've played a few other cowboy games as well that are on the market, some of the more famous ones, and I think, to be fair, I'm a big Two Fat Lardies fan anyway, but I think this one has a little bit more in it than a lot of the other ones do out there. I was left slightly disappointed by some of the others that I've played, whereas this one, I played it and I want to play it again. That's the kind of thing. The others I kind of could leave them or take or leave them. This one, I feel like I want to explore more of it because there's more of it in there that I'm looking forward to. So we've got full colour book. Here we are. It runs in at 84 pages in total. Full colour. The artwork on the inside is done by Jim Ibbotson, and with also some example pictures by Joe Bilton as well. This is, I think, by far probably the best produced Two Fat Lardies rules so far. Only shows that they're getting better and better with each release, and the artwork throughout it is fantastic and just really atmospheric as well. Looks fantastic, reads really well, written in quite a nice chatty style as well, which I like, rather than just a bog standard this is what you do kind of thing. It's got quite a few little throwaway lines in here and there. Also has a campaign system in it, which again I'll talk about. What we'll do is we'll jump over now, we'll have a look at the book as we go through it, and I can actually explain some of the ways that the actual game works and some of the nuances in there as well. Okay, I'm going to show you some of the cards as well that you're supposed to get with it, and the other bits and pieces as well. And I think it's well worth buying the deck of cards, which I've got here and laid about on the table, because you do get various things. This is going to be produced in PDF, I think, the card deck. The book, you can also get this in PDF as well as hardback. And also, I believe, as I say this, I think John Savage just sent over a quick reference sheet over to Rich, but Rich is currently just come out of an operation, so I think he's laid up for at least a week. So I wouldn't expect to see that anytime soon, but I think it's going to be produced and will be out on the Two Fat Lardies website. Alright, I think that's enough of an introduction. What we'll do is, well, as I say, we'll set up the camera, we'll dive straight in and have a look at the rules, and you can see how it's laid out, and we'll talk about how the game plays and some of the interesting features in it. So here we are, this is the cover of the game, as you can see here, and sorry, I've got it set out on my table that I've been playing on, so I've had a couple of games of this already, a couple of solos and also with some friends as well, and as I say, really good, nice, lovely cover there. On the front, this is work by Jim Ibbotson. He's known as, I think, Lieutenant Harry Storsky or something over on Twitter. Go and check out his artwork, he does some fantastic stuff anyway, but he's been commissioned to do all the interior art for this, apart from some of the maps which were done by Joe Bilton, which again are also fantastic. Straight first of all, we've got a Foundry advert on the inside there with their Cowboys and Wild West, their Wild West range, and then we've got a bit of an introduction here by John Savage, as I say, who had actually written it anyway, up in the Grim North. Let me just quickly show you, as I say, we've got some more stuff here as well, Warbasers figures and also their Black Sheep range, which I did a review of, some of their Mexicans. Fantastic figures these, really, really nice. But first of all, 100% I want to show you is there's an index, a 2-page index full of all sorts, really well laid out. Any rules that don't have an index in them can GTFO as far as I'm concerned. Always worthwhile having, because it just makes things a lot easier for looking stuff up at during a game. So please, rules writers, if you're reading this, please just put an index in. It can't be difficult these days with publishing software. Anyway, so we start up with, we've got, again, good contents here, so again you can just jump straight through to where it is that you need to be in the book itself. So both an index and a contents page are very, very, very useful in any rules, especially when you're new to them. Over here we've got a glossary. This just gives you find this in a lot of Too Fat Lardy stuff, this just basically just gives you a list of words that you are going to be using, or keywords that you're going to be using throughout the game, and just a way you can quickly jump back to it. I do like this. It's a really nice way of just really getting the player set up straight away, so you can read through this when you first open a page, so when these words come up later on, they're not taking you by surprise, or you can just jump back and just have a quick read of what it actually means, and it gives you an idea of what's to come as well. So always good, always good. And then we have the basics. Good introduction here just to the actual rules, explaining how big your play area is. 4x4 is ideal, it says. I've been playing on a 2x2, but I've only been using a small amount of figures. Just a number of dice. Also some character cards as well, and this is in the game deck here, which I do have here. As I say, I mentioned this previously, so you can buy this separately. I think there is going to be a PDF of these coming out soon, but basically, to be fair, half of it at least is just a typical deck of cards, so you could use that. The only other thing is the Desperado cards, and these are different, because these have special abilities and things that you can play throughout the game, just to add into it. So it's probably worthwhile buying the actual deck of cards, or just printing them off from the PDF, or at least the Desperado ones. So the reason that they use cards is because each figure or character is assigned a card, and then when that card is drawn, you basically shuffle the deck. When the card is drawn, they will take their action, and basically that's how the game plays. You go all the way through. Unlike lots of other Too Fat Lardy games, you go all the way through the deck. It does stop if one person rolls 4 6s in their pool of dice when they're activated. So basically the basic idea of the game is you draw a card, whoever's character is drawn then activates with their dice pool, and everybody starts with an action dice, 6 dice. This will reduce from shock, and it will also reduce from wounds as well. We'll get onto that when we talk about firing, but that's basically how the game plays, and everybody takes a turn at some point in it. However, whether they can actually do something in their turn is a different matter. So as I say, we basically, this is just setting up the game itself, just setting up the characters and the different forces as well, and there is a slight balance in here as well. So each of the different character levels, you've got from Legend, Gunslinger, Shootist, Greenhorn, and then down to Henchman group, they have a different amount of points.
And then that adds up to your force morale in the game itself. And this basically depends on whether you're going to stay on the table or not, which is the next bit here. So this is winning the game and ride or die. You basically have a force morale. When you reach a certain point, your forces disappear off the table because they've had enough, or you can literally run for the hills if you want to as well. So that's kind of how it works. It's not a fight to the absolute death. It's a fight until everybody's had enough, basically. Generally, you'll have a gang, and in the some of these we have these nice little examples throughout as well. And here, for example, the Bunting gang is, I think it's got 4 people in it. So we've got a legend, gunslinger, and then Johnny Panatoni and Bart Clampton, 2 shooters, 5, sorry, and then Leroy Dilfont, a greenhorn. So this is a point value of 15, for example. That's 5 figures. That's all you need, really. That's obviously a bigger game than the game I've been playing, but that's on a 4x4 rather than a 2x2 that I've been playing it on. So what happens here, this explains basically how the turn goes. And as I say, what you do is you deal the cards. Whosever card comes up, you assign each card to a character. Whosever card comes up then rolls their hand of action dice, and you generally start with 6, and these action dice do 1 of 6 different things. So a roll of a 1 is a move, 2 is a spot, 3 is an aim, 4 and 5 is shoot or reload, and then 6 is an aces high, which is basically a wild card and can be used for any of the other 1 to 5. A couple of the characters, like the gunslingers and the legends, can actually change some of these results into anything they want as well. Can't change it into a 6, but they can change it into anything from a 1 to a 5. So it just gives you that little bit of extra thought and decision in your turn as well. So the better your character, the more they're going to be doing while they're doing in their turn. I'll go through what each of these actually mean, and then we can talk a little bit more about those and the rules themselves as we go through them. So they are all explained at length throughout the rules, and again you can just jump back and forth into this just to see exactly what's happening. So move is a single dice, a 1 should I say. Your first move that you're going to do is always going to be a 2d6, 2d6 inches. You can play in centimetres if you want to, but I use it in inches. Any move dice that you use after that in that activation will only be 1 extra d6. However, that's just basic movement, so that's just moving in a line, not across any obstacles or anything. However, you have what's called enhanced movement on foot, and this is crossing obstacles. Very easy to do. Basically, any obstacle you cross, like a fence for example, it will cost you a movement dice. You can move 1 for free, and then any others will cost you a movement dice just to get across them. So again, nice examples here just to show you of them. So that would cost you 2 movement dice, for example. So you'd need 2 1s to get across those fences, otherwise you would stop at the second fence here. Also, there are very few tokens in the game that are actually on the table, or everything is off table, which is nice. The only one is a pin token, and you use a move dice to get rid of that. You will sometimes get pinned if you are dodging, or if you are shot and you take a casualty, that kind of thing. You might take a pin dice, and basically that just stops you doing anything. If you can't get rid of your pin token, then you can't do anything for the rest of the turn. It always has to be the first thing you do, and it always has to be with a move dice. So if you don't roll one, but you're a better cowboy, for example, like a shootist, sorry, not a shootist, a gunslinger, you could change one of your dice into a 1 to get rid of that pinned, and it just gives you that little bit of friction. You're using up 1 extra dice because you're trying to get rid of that pinned marker, otherwise you stay pinned and your turn ends. Rules here as well for climbing and for jumping and for falling if you do, because obviously this is Hollywood cowboy stuff, so you want to be doing stunts. There is actually rules for this later on. We'll get to those when we get to them, but you know, jumping and climbing and falling is all part of it as well, as is horseback riding as well, and doing tasks. So examples of tasks here, you basically just have to roll these various d6 to get to a target number. Once you pass the target number, you've achieve that task. So for example, securing livestock is quite simple. It only takes a 4. You need to get over that with certain amounts of dice rolls of your move dice. Putting out a fire is very difficult and will take 12, for example. Very similar to stuff in Sharp Practice 2, should I say. There's a lot of tasks in that. So that's kind of the same kind of idea really in there. Then we've got some mounted movements, as I mentioned already, and also moving mounted movements in difficulty, and staying in control of horses, because obviously horses are a part of Cowboy world, so we've got to have some horses in here as well. And then some vehicles as well. Here we've got how vehicles and wagons move, and who's in control of them, who can get on them, that kind of stuff as well. The basic kind of stuff you would expect in this kind of game. Far more simplified than in, say, Sharp Practice as well, which is good. Makes it a lot easier. Probably more like Infamy, and the horse rules in there really. So quite simple stuff. Second up, we have for a roll over 2, we have a spot dice. Now this is slightly similar to the move dice, in that if anybody's within 12 inches, you don't need a spotting dice to spot them. If they're further than 12 inches away or behind cover, you're going to need a certain amount of spot dice. You've got them here, tells you how many you need, and you don't have to roll over anything, you just have to use these dice up. So for example, if the range is between 12 and 24 inches, it costs you a spotting dice. If it's an extra over 12 inch, for every 12 inch par, you get another +1. If they are higher or lower, it's up plus or minus. And then also if you're in cover up to 4 inches, so like in a wood or something, it costs you 1 as well. Now, you might think, well, one figure can see another. Well, they can do, but they might be getting distracted. There might be gun smoke blowing across. There's all kinds of things that could be happening around them. They're distracted by a horse coming in, for example. So there's all these kinds of issues that could be playing a part of this, and this is really what this is about. However, once you spot somebody, they stay spotted unless they move out of line of sight or into cover, and then you have to spot them again with your dice. Really simple way of doing it though, so it's just a way of keeping you on your toes, and again forcing those decisions on you from your hand of 12 dice that you've got. Just a few more rules here about spotting mounted characters, spotting in buildings, spotting wagons and conveyors and things like that. Just some of these things that, again, simplified stuff that you're going to come across again in every game that you know. The most simple one is number 3, which is the aim. It says you can always shoot a target, a spotted target, without aiming. However, aiming improves it, and every 3 that you put in basically gives you an extra 1 on your shooting dice. That's simply how it works. You just add on those 3s. So you can, again, if you are good enough, you could probably change some of your dice over to 3s and just turn them into a 3 if you want. If you've got 6s, you can turn those into 3s just to increase the power of your shot. And that is quite an important thing to do, to be perfectly honest, because when you shoot, your roll to hit is also your roll to wound as well. But we'll talk about that in a second. So basically you start off here. Shooting, you can either do it with a 4 and a 5. This is also for reloading as well. So if you have either run out of ammo or you are low on ammo, you can actually reload using these 4s and 5s. And we start off with, there's only 4 guns here, or 4 weapons here. There's a lot more later on in the more advanced rules and in the campaign rules, so you can add those later, but I just suggest using these 4 in the initial games that you play. So we've got the Colt 45 Peacemaker pistol, obviously a Winchester shotgun and a sawn-off shotgun. Different ranges: 12 inch for the Peacemaker, 24 for the Winchester, 9 for the shotgun, and 6 for the sawn-off shotgun. This is effective range. The maximum range is double this. So actually a Colt will go up to 24 inch, whereas a Winchester 48, shotgun 18, and then the sawn-off 12 inch. And they have a few notes as well here. So the rifle, double barrel, buckshot, shotgun, double barrel, buckshot, shotgun, and sawn off. And these have different effects at different ranges when they actually come to fire. Firing is incredibly simple. You have only a few modifiers. You'll remember these straight away pretty much as you're playing the game. A couple of rounds and you'll get these because you'll be using the similar kind of weapons over and over again. So a pistol and sawn off at 4 inches or less gives you a +1. Firing at over effective range, a -1. For each aim dice used, as we've already mentioned, you get a +1. Shooting at henchmen, I'll talk about henchmen later, but they're basically groups of people who aren't as good as characters. And then aimed shots with rifle over 12 inches, so long range weapon obviously. You roll the dice, 5 or more, you add any of these additions onto it, and a 5 or more is a hit. The opponent then gets a dodge. If they dodge, if they're in cover, they stay hunkered down. If they dodge and they're out of cover, then they will then move either back towards cover, or if they are a good enough character, they will move towards cover in front of them. But again, this is all explained in there. So they have to dodge. If they're in the open, they dodge on a 5 up. If they're in cover, they'll dodge on a 4 up. And then the fire won't affect them. But if the fire gets through, you take that 5 and you add your number to it. So let's say we've got a +2 from our aim dice, and we're also close with a pistol. So we've got a +3. We roll a 4. That becomes a 7. That then actually becomes the effect. So this is the hit effect here. 1 to 4 it's no effect. 5 is a hit and you take a shock. 6 is a wound, and then 7 is a critical wound, or 7+. So in our example there, with a 4 with +3, that would take us up to a 7, so that would be a critical wound. So they would then take a pin token, and also rolling on this critical wound table here as well. The other basic ones are, we've got a shock. When you take shock in What a Cowboy, let me just show you the character sheet here, for example. We've got the action dice space here. This usually has 6 action dice in it. You will place one in your shock pool. You can recover these by rolling 6s, your ace is high, and they go back into your action dice. But obviously the more you've got in shock pool, the fewer you can use as an action. So that's a very simple way of dealing with shock, and just making sure that they're keeping their heads down as much as anything else. Also, wound. So just to go back here, wound is you actually place an action dice in the shock pool, but you also lose another action dice permanently as well. And then when you get more action dice lost than actual dice in play, I think it's 3 or more, you are wounded and you're taken out of the game. If you've got more shock than action dice available, then you run away as well. So it also plays as part of the morale for the figure on them themselves. So it's a really nice way of doing it. Instead of having to shoot and then find out what the effect is, you basically just shoot and you automatically know what the effect is. All they get is a dodge roll to see if they can dodge it. Then we have critical rolls. Critical wounds, and then these do various things. We have leg wounds, arm wounds, chest wounds, head wounds, gut shot, and then boot heel dead. So you're just taken out immediately. As I say, you can be taken out by losing all your action dice anyway. Once you've done that, you are taken out and wounded, and then that goes on in the campaign game. That will have an effect, as will the wounds as well. They will carry over into campaign games as well. So the characters that you build up will quickly get these various bits and pieces as they go along as well. These various negative traits for later games, unfortunately for them. Here we are, out of action. So once a character has no action dice remaining in play, they either flee the table or are badly wounded and deemed out of play. In either case, they're removed from the play. So this is the bit here. It says if the character out of action has lost more action dice to the shock pool than those lost permanently, the character flees the table. If the out of action character has lost 3 or more action dice permanently, the character is badly wounded. And remove the character from table and see the campaign rules for badly wounded characters. So that's when it carries over as well. So it's you're getting these things, and you've got to look after these guys and make sure they're all right for the next campaign game. Then we also have here, this is interesting, near misses. If your character is being shot at and is stood next to another character, be that friendly or enemy, they may be hit, depending if they're within 2 inch. If they're 2 inch of a line from the shooter to the target, they could actually get hit if the actual target is missed in the first place. So you roll for that as well. I've already mentioned it, your 4s and 5s will also give you a reload as well on your dice, if that's what you require at the time. So it's basically, if you're out of line of sight, or if you've only got 1 round or less in your weapon, you can play a reload dice. So you can basically hunker down behind a building and then fill your pistol back up. So yeah, we've seen it all in cowboy films, definitely. The other one then is 6, which is the Aces High. This is the wild card, so this, you can change this into anything else you want. However, you can also recover shock dice from this, so you can bring the ones that's in your shock area, in your shock pool down here, back into your action dice for the next turn, so you're increasing your chances of doing more stuff, obviously. But then you can also do things like trick shooting and Hollywood stunts. Trick shooting is basically like if you need to shoot through a wall, you can't see the character, the enemy, but you can actually, you know they're there, so you just want to shoot through the wall of them. Rules for that. And then Hollywood stunts as well, and this is done, basically you decide how you want to do your stunts. So you say, okay, I want to jump off the roof, land in the street, and then open fire. Can I do it? You decide how hard it's going to be, and then you just see from the character's skill level if you can actually do it or not. It's pretty simple stuff, and this is where the fun comes in with the game, really. You know, it's that Hollywood idea. We've all watched the cowboy films. The other things as well, when you roll 6s, are we also get, if you roll 3 of them, then a random event will happen. We've got the random event table here, so it's all kinds of stuff like Hungry Like the Wolf, a dog, wolf, bear or other wild animal attacks, damn horses, character slips in some horse dung and falls, all the way up to things like Stampede, a herd of cattle appear 12 inches away from the character. So all kinds of nonsense. I know a lot of people probably don't like this so much in sharp practice, and you might not like it so much in this, but it just adds a bit of flavour and a bit of fun. It's the kind of thing you don't really need to put it in if you don't want to. I think it's fun. Obviously it means that you're going to have a few more bits and pieces than your basic figures, just to, you know, populate this random event table, or you could just say it's happened and they've disappeared, but it's there for a bit of fun. And then Aces and 8s is 4 Aces High dice. What happens here is you get a bonanza token. I'll talk about those in a second, and then the turn actually ends completely once that character has taken their activation, so nobody else will get it to do a turn that. So it's basically like a bit of a pause, again like it's a chapter end in sharp practice, for example. So everybody reloads completely, and also all pin tokens are removed as well, so it's a bit of a bonus for everybody across the board, but it just means that one character then just ends the turn immediately. So again, a slight bit of friction in there. Then we've got hand-to-hand combat. This, like every Too Fat Lad, is basically a dice pool. You build up dice depending on if you're the defender or the attacker, depending on the circumstances and what they have with them, what kind of weapons they have with them, and then you basically roll the dice. Hits, if you're fighting with your fists, it's 5s and 6s. Fighting with a knife, 4 up. If it's a sword, Indian Lancer, bayonet, 3s up. And all those hits, you basically work out who's got the most, and it goes on net hits. And whoever has the most net hits does the amount of damage to the other one. It's pretty simple stuff, really. Really nice and easy, as they usually are in Too Fat Lardy's games. I've found so far we've not really done any brawling yet, though. It's mainly been gunfire, but you know, that's just the way it goes in the West. And then we've also got brawling on horseback, of course, and then also prisoners, taking prisoners as thing. Now, this is the interesting part of the game as well, is the bonanza tokens. So we get these depending on the character. You may start with some of these already. Legends generally starts with 2, I think it is. A gunslinger will start with 2. Sorry, I think Legends maybe actually start with 2. I can't remember exactly. I'll have to go back. But gunslingers start with 2, and shooters start with 1 each. Greenhorns don't get 1, unfortunately for them. And what these are just tokens. They could be anything. I've got the official war bases of tokens. And basically these are interruptions, so you just spend them and then you can immediately take a turn, and the amount of dice that you roll depends on your character level. So a legend will roll their current action dice -1, so if you're unharmed, you've got no shock, that would mean 5 dice, down to a greenhorn who will roll their current action dice -4. So it's not a full move, but it's still a move. And you can interrupt anything at any time by shouting Bonanza and playing your token, as long as you've got a Bonanza token to do it with. Now, the way it works is the only time you can't do it is if somebody fires at you and they've already rolled their dice to fire. You have to interrupt them before they've rolled those dice, but then you may get a chance to fire at them or to move out of the way, that kind of thing. And this is a really nice little way of just adding a bit of friction and fun to the game, so that, you know, if you've got the tokens to do it, then you may as well spend them just to blast away. And what you can do is, as we say, you can interrupt another character's activation. So you can do this automatically. You can also interrupt somebody else's Bonanza as well if they want to. And you could just keep doing it, really, as long as everybody's got tokens to do it. You can also use it, though, to fast and draw as well. So you can spend your Bonanza token to declare a fast draw, but this is before their opponent rolls their Bonanza dice, so you're basically interrupting them as well. And then you basically roll off to see who gets to go first in that case. So yeah, there's a little bit of extra bits here, and then also you've got a gamble as well, which means you can actually reduce shock from your shock pool as well, but you have to roll for it. So you roll a d6 and then you roll a 1 or a 2. 1 dice is removed from your shock pool, 3, 4, 2 dice are out, and a 5, 6, 3 are removed. So you may as well wait at least until you've got 3 shock in there and then try and get rid of it. So a few things you can do with a Bonanza. As I say, it's not just an interrupter, it is also a fast draw as well, and also a gambling thing as well. So again, it's just a nice little mechanic in there, just to make you think, do you hold on to it now? Do you use it when you've got loads of shock, or do you wait until the enemy is about to shoot at you and do you run away? That kind of thing. Then we've also got henchmen. So we have the characters, which are the player's actual individual figures, but then we have henchmen. These are in groups of 3 basically. They will act almost the same as characters, but there's quite a few things they don't do. They're just a bit quicker, and they also have they're assumed to have a bunch of different weapons, so they only have a certain range, 12-inch range. And they don't get +1 benefit from shooting within 4-inch either. There are a couple of other things they can do. They're a bit more simple than the characters, but they're kind of just there to soak up hits, really, and just also to do bits and pieces. You can get them to move around with your character as well if they're within 6 inches of them. Order them to move with you, to support you, and that kind of thing as well. So, you know, every cowboy film is full of nameless henchmen, and this is where they fit in. It's a really nice little addition to the game without making it too complicated, and you can just have all these little extra characters kicking about as well. Townsfolk are similar. These are obviously unarmed people. These will react whenever somebody starts shooting at a certain range, or if they move within them, a character moves close to them, and then they have a reaction as well as to what they do. Generally they're going to run for their lives, or they're going to be frozen with fear. They might actually start fighting with the character though, but you can also use them as human shields if you want. Now this gives the gang a bad reputation if you are playing the campaign, so it's probably maybe not the best thing to do. But, you know, if you're in a town that is going to be full of people, so it's nice to have these characters doing something as well instead of just standing about. So that's all covered. And then we get on to the meat of the campaign itself. Now this is slightly different. With this really takes the basic game up a level, because you're now starting to add these individual characters and also give them skills and traits as well. So for each of the different types, you've got the greenhorn, the shootist. They all have a cost in dollars. You'll have a purse, and you'll spend that on recruiting your gang. So, for example, a limit of $150 per side will provide a good game for 2 to 4 players. Buy your characters, and then what money remains to enhance their equipment. So, for example, a legend is $60, your gunslinger is $40, shoot is $20, and a greenhorn $10. Gives you a bit of an idea of this is a point system basically. And then for each one of them, you can roll up skills for them. So you would roll a d6 first of all to see what kind of background they have, and then roll again to see what particular skills they have as well. Some of these are good. The ones in red are not so good. So you can see the greenhorn, they have a very a high number of red ones, whereas the shootist and gunslinger and legend don't. They're all in black, so they're much better. And then it just goes through the different skills. A lot of these are relatively basic. It's stuff like, you know, for shooting skills, it's going to be, for example, Deadeye. You can always convert one action dice to an aim. You can always convert one action dice to a spot. Quick draw, for example, trick shooter. This is typical stuff that you would expect, you know, just to add a bit of flavour to these characters. And that's exactly what this is doing here. So you've got shooting skills, movement skills, toughness skills. I probably don't need to explain what all these are to you in detail, but fighting skills and smart skills. And then the negative traits as well. These are the ones that aren't great. So jumpy, soft and slow. And they do various bits and pieces to these characters. You can get rid of those traits later on in the campaign. If you play the campaign, you can actually get rid of them to make those better, even though they are greenhorns. Then we've got equipment as well, various bits and pieces, and you can everybody can shop in the general store. I think it's only gunslingers and legends can actually go into the gunsmith and buy weapons, better weapons than the basic ones. I'll get to those in a sec though. So we've got general store weapons as well, so basically it's the same as the basics, but you also have a knife. But then we also have general store with equipment, so this is stuff like thick furs, Ned Kelly's armour, fancy duds, pearl handle grips, quarter horse, thoroughbred horses. And again, these all have a price. If they're rare, they can only be bought, I think, by a gunslinger or a legend. So, you know, there is a restriction on what can happen, and then everything is explained here as well. So you're just adding bits and pieces to this game beyond it just being a shooting game. You're being able to add all these little extras to your gang and just really kit them out and give them a bit of chrome and a bit of bling to get them good. And the same with the weapons. With this, I mentioned before there was only 4 weapons in the basic game. Here are here's your full list of weapons. So we've got all sorts, from handguns, all kinds of different pistols, revolvers, all the way through to long arms. So all kinds of different rifles, up to shotguns as well, including bows and arrows, muskets, even Gatling guns, and a war wagon, and then also some hand weapons as well down here. So a huge amount of bits and pieces here if you need it. So you can really go to town with kitting out your guys with different bits and pieces. And I know a lot of people like doing this kind of thing, don't they? It's a nice way of just personalising your team and your gang basically. And then we have a list over here of weapon notes, just explaining what the different weapons do, and you can just quickly jump back to this, just find out what the different weapon traits are as well. And then we also have some sneaky tricks as well, and also pesky varmints. And this is generally adding henchman groups, also ambush points to the games, movable deployment points, things like that. So these are little bits and pieces of tricky things that you can add in. Again, they all have a cost to them, so you can move about the table and use ambushes and that kind of thing as well. So again, just adding that flavour to your particular gang, however you want them to fight. Then we come on to the campaign, which is a few dice more. This is really nicely covered. So we start off with a basic campaign map up here. You're basically fighting for control of these territories, working your way in to High Noon, which is going to be your final campaign turn at the end. And you also have a nice campaign map here with Lardville in the centre, the town here, and the outlying areas. So the Lazy S Ranch, the Old Spanish Mission, the mine, the mountains, and then as you get closer in, railroad, schoolhouse, new suburbs, and the timber mill. So you work your way in, try to control these areas, because if you control these areas, you get money for them, and if you get money for them, then you get to spend it on your weapons and equipment later on. So you're incentivized to actually do area control against the other gangs. You can use, this is the basic one, this is the one that they've set up for you as part of the game. You can use this if you want to, or you can just invent your own. It's easy enough, and it's basically just that's the symbol. That is the layout for the campaign. So you can just put your ones who want in. You roll up dice if you want to. So if you want to just make your own campaign, you roll up dice. This tells you exactly what these areas are going to be. So the outskirts districts are the ones outside of town, the outlying territories are the ones outside the outskirts, and you roll up for these, as I say, for each of these areas, and fill it in if you want to. And you can make your own little maps as well of it. And then this is just an explanation of what these different areas are, what kind of terrain you would expect to see on them, for example. So you can set these up. It's just what you've got in your collection as much as anything else, for example. So let me just show you, for example, you've got a schoolhouse. On the outskirts of town is a schoolhouse with a modest yard where the children play, set in a residential area. There are houses, sheds and outhouses close by, maybe even the almost ubiquitous Chinese laundry. So for example, it's just giving you an idea of the kind of things that you would expect to see on your tabletop if you rolled that result. And then it goes into the campaign sequence. You will roll to see which scenario you're playing, and each of these scenarios are then covered. 6 scenarios, like there are in a lot of Too Fat Lardies games. You can play any one of these, you don't have to play these as part of the campaign, but these, again, each one of them has their deployment points for each enemy, any objective or way of winning the game, or any extra special rules. And also the reputation that you gain at the end of it. So the more reputation you get, the better the more money you will gain as well at the end of each campaign game, which then, as I say, feeds back into buying better weapons and better equipment for your guys, and also just increasing their skills as well. That's another way of doing it. So got a couple more here: Highway Robbery, Scorched Earth, with all the setup, and then the Vendetta as well. And you basically just explains how you play the game and how you work your way. Game 6 is usually the final game of the campaign, the grand finale, which is the one that takes place in Lardville, or whatever your town is called. And then wound recovery as well over here tells you how these guys actually see those guys and gals see themselves, how they recover after the games, if they are wounded or not. Serious wounds, how they recover from those, and then also any achievements that they get in the game, as well as the bonuses that they already got from the game itself, from the specific scenario. So you can get lots of reputation. If you have reputation points, you can then increase skills. So for example, for 5, a greenhorn can become a shootist and gain a new skill, or they can get rid of one of their bad skills. We mentioned those before. And all the way up to 50, the character creates a new skill, or a gunslinger can become a legend with 30 points. So you're building those up and then you spend them on the characters. You can also buy reputation as well if you want to, and then just increase your skills and various things as well if you've got the money to do it. And also what happens with a bad reputation as well. So you can go the way of the evil man if you want to. You know, you don't have to go the good guys. You can certainly be evil, doing outrageous things as well on top of that. And then you get this income as well at the end of the game, and as I say, different areas will generate different amounts of income. I think there is actually a typo in here, and I think it's a Lazy S Ranch. I can't remember. I think it might be 3d6. John Savage did tell me, but I think this is a typo that's crept through, unfortunately. It'll be in the errata, I'm fairly sure. But basically you roll this amount of dice, and then for every 5 or 6 you get $20 in revenue. So the better the places that you control, the more money you're going to get, which you then spend on weapons. And also, if you get 6s, you might get some loot as well, so you could get another bonus on top of that. So it's a really nice way of doing it. So for example, let's say we have control of the mine. We roll 3d6, we roll a 4, a 5 and a 6. So the 5 and the 6 gives us $20, so that's 40, and then we also have a 6 here. And it says here, 1 with 6 is rolled, no loot is found, but the gang enjoys the night carousing in the local saloon. One character in that gang may have an additional Desperado card in the next game. So I've already mentioned these in passing, but these are nice little it's small event cards. So for example, this one says use an additional shoot dice in the current activation, for example. So you get an extra one of those. Very nice. And then also there's some of the benefits as well to actually controlling these things. So for example, if you're in the mountains, when a game occurs in this territory, the game that controls it now gains a free ambush point. So, you know, there's a little extra bits like that as well, so it's worthwhile just having those things in place. And that kind of really is the end of the campaign. You can just recruit new people. Tells you what you get. You can actually spend the money to add dice to this, so if you roll 1 to a 3 on a d6, you're going to get a greenhorn. You can actually spend up to a +2 for $150 to make sure you're less likely to get a greenhorn and more likely to get a gunslinger. So this is, you know, just adding to your gang as well as you go along. So you can spend money on all these different various bits and pieces as well. And then that takes us through the end to the credits. There you go. And as I say, the index, as you've seen it there. So that basically covers the rules, and you know, that might give you, hopefully that'll give you a good idea of how this plays. Very typical to a lot of Too Fat Lardies rules, where there's a lot of choice. The complexity of the rules is not in the rules itself, it's down to the complexity of choice that you have with those dice, with that dice pool, your action dice pool, allowing you to do things or not do things at a certain time, and you know, forcing you to make choices with a small amount of resources. And I think it's a really good way of doing it, and the better your character, the more likely they are to be able to get what they want out of that dice pool. Well, that kind of brings me to the end of the review. I think it's a great game. I've already said, you know, I want to come back and play this a lot more. I've enjoyed every game I've had of it so far, and looking forward to more of it as well, because it's a nice simple game to set up, nice and simple to get going, and I'm looking forward to actually jumping in on the campaign as well at some point, and I'm sure I will do. I might even record a series of campaign games for the channel as well, since it's only 6 games in total. So keep an eye out for that. As I say, I've already done a battle report for this, so I did get a few things wrong in it, but that's, you know, that's always the way of this channel anyway. You wouldn't expect anything less, I don't think, at this point. But let me know if you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of War Cowboy. Well, let me know what you think about the rules mechanisms in the game itself as well. And you know, if it's the kind of thing you'll be into. I know a lot of people are enjoying it as well over on the Facebook page, so go and check that out. And thanks once again for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Also, you can help the channel out by looking at my Patreon and even channel membership. So thanks again once again for watching, and look out for the next Storm of Steel video.